Aron had always believed that the universe had a twisted sense of humor. Case in point, the Meridian's edge was supposedly equipped with the most advanced navigation system in the fleet, yet here they were, drifting toward a jungle moon that wasn't even supposed to exist according to their star charts. "Well, that's not ominous at all," he muttered, watching the swirling green atmosphere of Thessera 7 fill the viewport. The planet's twin suns cast everything in an eerie emerald glow that made him think of pickled vegetables, not exactly the romantic cosmic vista he'd imagined when he signed up for deep space exploration. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom with the kind of forced cheerfulness that meant things were about to go spectacularly wrong. "Attention crew, we're experiencing some minor technical difficulties with the quantum flux stabilizers. Please remain calm, man." The ship lurched violently, throwing Aron against the bulkhead. His medical kit scattered across the floor, hyposprays rolling everywhere like metallic confetti. Through the chaos, he heard Engineer Walsh's voice from the engine room, "Minor technical difficulties. Captain, the quantum matrix is about to turn us into cosmic dust." Aron scrambled to collect his equipment, mentally cataloging each piece. 3 neural stimulators, check. Bone fusion injector, check. Emergency surgical kit, check. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was preparing for medical emergencies while potentially becoming a casualty himself. The ship's AI, Aria, chimed in with her maddeningly calm voice, "Electromagnetic pulse detected from planetary core. Crystalline interference causing cascade failure in all primary systems. Estimated time to complete power loss, 4 minutes, 37 seconds. "Great," Aron said, stuffing the last of his supplies into the kit. Just enough time to write a strongly worded letter to the shipbuilders about their state-of-the-art shielding. Another violent shudder sent him sprawling. Red emergency lights bathed the corridor in hellish crimson, and the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. He found himself briefly weightless, then slammed back down as the generators kicked in again. "All hands to escape pods." Captain Rodriguez's voice had lost its forced optimism. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." Aron sprinted toward Pod Bay C, his medical training overriding panic. Around him, crew members rushed in controlled chaos, their faces reflecting the red emergency lighting like demons in a fever dream. The ship groaned around them, metal stressed beyond its limits. He reached his assigned pod just as the lights flickered and died. Emergency illumination cast ghostly shadows as he strapped himself in, medical kit secured between his feet. Through the small porthole, he could see chunks of the Meridian's edge already breaking away, spiraling down toward the jungle moon like burning meteors. The pod's launch sequence engaged with a bone-jarring thud. Aron felt his stomach drop as they shot away from the dying ship, the jungle canopy rushing up to meet them with alarming speed. The pod's primitive stabilizers screamed in protest as they hit the atmosphere, and he could smell ozone and burning electronics. "Please remain calm," the pod's basic AI announced in a voice that sounded like it was being strangled. "Landing sequence initiated. Probability of survival, 73%. 73%. Aron gripped his harness tighter. "I've seen better odds at a casino rigged by telepathic octopi." The jungle canopy exploded around them in a shower of alien leaves and startled creatures that looked like flying jellyfish made of starlight. His pod crashed through multiple layers of vegetation before finally slamming into something solid with a sound like reality being torn in half. When the ringing in his ears stopped, Aron found himself hanging upside down in his harness, staring at a forest that definitely wasn't in any botany textbook. Bioluminescent flowers pulsed with rhythmic light, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with floating spores that danced like microscopic fireflies. He fumbled for his harness release, dropping unceremoniously onto what he hoped was the ceiling. His medical kit had survived the crash, though it now bore several artistic dents. The pod's emergency beacon blinked weakly, its signal barely stronger than a whisper. "Well," he said to no one in particular, "at least I didn't die horribly in the vacuum of space. That's got to count for something." A faint distress signal chirped from his emergency scanner, somewhere deeper in the alien jungle. Someone else had survived the crash, and they needed help. Aron shouldered his kit and stepped out into the bioluminescent twilight, where the air tasted of copper and possibilities, and twin suns cast shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. The universe's sense of humor, he reflected, was about to get a lot more complicated. Aron had walked for exactly 23 minutes through what he was beginning to think of as nature's psychedelic nightmare, when he encountered his first attempt at becoming plant food. The thing looked like a Venus flytrap that had been hitting the gym and taking steroids, with leaves the size of dinner tables and what appeared to be rows of crystalline teeth. "Oh, come on," he muttered, backing away slowly. "I survived a spaceship crash just to become a midnight snack for Audrey 3's angry cousin." The plant swayed toward him with disturbing intelligence, and Aron noticed that its motion sensors were tracking his movement. He pulled out his medical scanner and waved it in the opposite direction. The plant immediately snapped toward the device with a sound like breaking glass. "Motion detection, huh?" He grinned and tossed a small rock to his left. The plant lunged after it with embarrassing enthusiasm, allowing him to slip past while it tried to digest granite. "Thanks for the lesson in alien botany, gorgeous. Maybe we can do lunch sometime when I'm not the main course." The distress signal grew stronger as he pushed deeper into the jungle, though the terrain seemed determined to kill him in increasingly creative ways. Floating spores drifted past his face like miniature disco balls, and he quickly learned to hold his breath around them after one made him temporarily convinced that his medical kit was plotting against him. "Hallucinogenic spores," he said to himself, carefully skirting a cluster of them. Because regular old poisonous spores would be too mainstream for this place. His scanner beeped insistently, indicating the signal was close. Through a gap in the bioluminescent canopy, he spotted the twisted wreckage of another escape pod wedged between two massive trees. The sight made his stomach drop. The pod was crushed like a tin can, its hull split open and bleeding emergency foam. "Please don't be dead," he whispered, breaking into a run. "I did not survive carnivorous plants and psychedelic spores just to find an empty pod." As he approached, he could hear something that made his heart race, labored breathing. Someone was alive in there, and they were in trouble. He pulled out his medical scanner and aimed it at the wreckage, getting readings that made him blink in confusion. "Well, that's interesting," he said, studying the biometric data. "Either someone's playing a very elaborate prank, or I'm about to perform first aid on a non-human." The breathing grew more ragged, and Aron abandoned his scientific curiosity in favor of basic medical instincts. He climbed over the debris, squeezing through a gap in the pod's hull. Inside, he found her. She was pinned beneath a section of twisted metal, her left leg clearly broken. Her skin was a pale blue that seemed to shimmer with internal light, and her ears, definitely not human ears, were long and pointed like something from ancient Earth mythology. Copper-green blood seeped from various cuts, and her violet eyes were wide with pain and something that looked like fear. "Hey there," Aron said softly, dropping to his knees beside her. "I'm Aron. I'm a medic, and I'm going to help you, okay?" She stared at him with those impossible eyes, and when she spoke, her voice was melodic despite the pain. "Human. Guilty as charged," he said, already assessing her injuries with his scanner. "Though I prefer to think of myself as medically trained human who crashes spectacularly but survives to tell about it." That got him something that might have been a smile. "Velari," she said. "Scout. Altairian Collective. Nice to meet you, Velari. Now, I'm going to need you to stay very still while I figure out how to get you out of this mess without making things worse." He began pulling tools from his kit. "Fair warning. I've never treated an Altairian before, so if you start glowing or sprouting extra limbs, that's probably normal, right?" This time she definitely smiled, though it was strained. "No extra limbs. Glowing, sometimes." "Sometimes?" Aron raised an eyebrow as he began setting up a portable stabilizer. "Please tell me it's not about to explode kind of glowing." Emotional response, she said, then winced as he began working to free her leg. Stress, pain, fear. Well, at least I'll have a mood ring that talks back, he said, carefully positioning his tools. This is going to hurt, but I need to stabilize the fracture before I can move you. As he worked, she suddenly reached out and grabbed his hand with surprising strength. Her grip was desperate, almost painful, and her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made him pause. "Don't leave me," she whispered, and something in her voice made his chest tighten. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised, though her grip made continuing his work awkward. "Though I have to say, this is definitely the most interesting patient interaction I've had. Usually people just complain about my bedside manner." She didn't laugh, but her grip loosened slightly. Around them, the jungle pulsed with alien life, and Aron realized that whatever happened next, this was going to be a very long day. Getting Velari out of the wreckage required more engineering than medicine, and Aron found himself grateful for all those boring physics classes he'd slept through in medical school. Well, mostly slept through. "Okay, so here's the plan," he said, rigging a pulley system from salvaged pod components and his emergency cables. "I'm going to lift this debris just enough for you to slide out. Think of it as a very expensive, very dangerous mechanical massage." Velari's grip on his hand tightened. "Your humor is unusual." "Unusual good or unusual, please stop talking before I bite you." He tested the tension on his improvised lever system. "Because I should warn you, stress makes me chatty. Really chatty. Like, won't shut up about quantum mechanics chatty." "Unusual, comforting," she said, and her skin shimmered with a soft golden light that definitely hadn't been there before. "See? Glowing. I told you that was going to happen." He positioned himself at the lever. "On 3. 1, 2, wait, do Altairians count the same way humans do? I mean, what if your 3 is actually our 7, Aron?" Her voice was patient but strained. "Standard counting. Please. Right. Okay. 1, 2, 3. He threw his weight against the lever, and the debris shifted with a grinding screech of tortured metal. Velari pulled herself free with surprising grace, though she couldn't quite suppress a gasp of pain as her broken leg dragged across the pod's floor. "Got it," she panted, and immediately her hand found his again. "Thank you." Aron knelt beside her, medical scanner in his free hand. "Don't thank me yet. I still need to set this fracture, and I'm working with equipment designed for human physiology. For all I know, Altairian bones are made of crystallized moonbeams and good intentions." "Calcium carbonate matrix," she said with what might have been amusement. "Similar to human bone structure, but denser. Stronger. Of course they are. Because regular breakable bones would be too easy." He began assembling his bone fusion injector. "Next you'll tell me you have 2 hearts or something equally inconvenient." 3 hearts, actually." Aron paused, injector halfway to her leg. "I'm sorry, what?" 3 hearts. Primary circulation, secondary for extremities, tertiary for neural enhancement." She was definitely smiling now, despite the pain. "Is that problematic?" "Problematic? Lady, I'm a field medic, not a cardiac surgeon. I barely know how to fix 1 heart, let alone 3. He shook his head and resumed his work. "Though I have to admit, it explains why you're still conscious after losing this much blood. Any human would have passed out by now." As he worked to stabilize her leg, Velari began to talk, her voice growing softer and more distant. "My homeworld. Altair Prime, mining colony. We were workers, not citizens. Humans needed our strength, our ability to work in thin atmosphere." "Sounds rough," Aron said, carefully aligning the bone fragments with sonic precision. "They called us useful aliens," she continued, her grip on his hand tightening. "Never people. Never equals. When the tunnel systems collapsed, the human overseers, they sealed the exits. Saved their own people first. Aron's hand stilled. How many? 12,000. Including my parents. My sister. Her voice was barely a whisper. I was off-world, training as a scout. I came back to find empty spaces where my family used to be. I'm sorry. He resumed his work, but something had shifted between them. For what it's worth, not all humans are like that. I know. She squeezed his hand. You could have left me here. Found other survivors. Instead you're here, fixing my leg, making terrible jokes. Hey, my jokes aren't terrible. They're aggressively mediocre. He activated the bone fusion sequence, and she winced as the device hummed to life. Besides, leaving injured people in wreckage is against the Hippocratic Oath. Also, it's just generally a dick move. She laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was like music filtered through starlight. Dick move? Technical medical term, he said solemnly. Means, behavior that would make your grandmother ashamed of you. Grandmother, she repeated thoughtfully. We call them memory keepers. They hold the stories of our people, pass them down through generations. What would your memory keeper think of you trusting a human? He asked, checking the fusion progress. Velari was quiet for a long moment. She would say that wisdom comes from seeing people as they are, not as their species demands them to be. Her violet eyes met his. What would your grandmother think of you helping an alien? She'd probably ask if you're single and whether you eat enough, Aron said without hesitation. Gran believes that most problems in the universe can be solved with a good meal and finding the right person to share it with. Smart woman. The smartest. He finished the bone fusion and began wrapping her leg in biosynthetic bandages. There. You're not going to be running any marathons, but you should be able to walk. Velari flexed her leg experimentally, then looked up at him with those impossible eyes. You saved my life. I said a broken bone. Hardly heroic. He packed his equipment, but she didn't let go of his hand. Velari, I need both hands too. Please. Her voice was small, almost fragile. Don't let go. Not yet. Something in her tone made him pause. Her grip wasn't just about comfort or gratitude anymore. There was something deeper there, something that made his chest tighten in a way that had nothing to do with the thin atmosphere. Okay, he said quietly. I won't let go. As Thessera 7's twin sun set, the jungle transformed into something that looked like a rave organized by bioluminescent fireflies with excellent taste in ambient lighting. Aron had managed to construct a shelter from pod debris and salvaged emergency blankets, though calling it a shelter was generous. It looked more like a fort built by optimistic children with access to space-age materials. 5 stars for structural integrity, he said, testing one of the support beams. -4 stars for aesthetic appeal. Net result, a shelter that screams, desperate human tried his best. Velari, still gripping his hand, laughed softly. On Altair Prime, we lived in underground warrens. Functionality over beauty was necessary. Well, then this should feel like a luxury resort. He settled beside her, their linked hands resting between them. Complete with mood lighting courtesy of the local flora and a soundtrack by whatever those things are. The things in question were producing a symphony of sounds that ranged from melodic chirping to what sounded like someone gargling with liquid starlight. Velari tilted her head, listening intently. Nectar singers, she said. They're harmless. Actually, they're quite beautiful when you see them in daylight. Like living crystals with wings. Of course they are. Because this place needed more things that are both gorgeous and completely alien. He pulled out a nutrition bar from his kit and offered her half. Dinner is served. Fair warning, it tastes like cardboard seasoned with false hope. She accepted the bar but made no move to eat it. Instead, she stared at their joined hands with an expression that was part wonder, part concern. Aron, she said carefully, there's something I need to tell you about my people. About what's happening between us. If you're about to tell me that holding hands is actually some sort of Altairian mating ritual, I'm going to need a much stronger drink than recycled water. Not mating, she said, though her skin flickered with a brief rose-colored glow. Bonding. Neural bonding. It happens during times of extreme stress, when we're vulnerable. Our nervous systems, they reach out, seeking connection. Aron blinked. So you're saying that your brain is literally networking with mine? Like some kind of biological Wi-Fi? That's actually not a terrible analogy. She squeezed his hand. I can feel your emotions. Your memories. Your genuine concern for my well-being, even though you barely know me. Well, that's either really romantic or a massive invasion of privacy. I'm going to go with romantic because it sounds better. He studied her face. What else can you feel? Loneliness, she said softly. So much loneliness. And dedication. You chose medicine because you wanted to help people, not for prestige or money. Guilty as charged. Though the money would have been nice. He paused. What about you? What are you feeling? Terror, she admitted. Not of dying, but of being alone again. Of losing this connection we've found. Their moment of vulnerability was interrupted by a sound that made them both freeze, a low, keening wail that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The bioluminescent plants around them began to dim, as if sensing danger. Please tell me that's just the jungle's way of saying goodnight, Aron said, but he was already reaching for his medical scanner. Shadow wraiths, Velari whispered, her grip on his hand becoming painful. They hunt at night. They're attracted to bioelectric fields. Bioelectric fields? Aron checked his scanner and swore. You mean like the kind produced by living things? Exactly. But humans produce weaker fields. Altairians. She gestured to herself, and he could see her skin beginning to pulse with nervous light. We might as well be wearing neon signs. The keening grew closer, and Aron could see shapes moving in the darkness beyond their shelter, fluid, shifting forms that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Okay, new plan, he said, pulling out his emergency plasma torch. You stay here and try to dim whatever light show you've got going on. No. Velari released his hand for the first time since he'd found her, grabbing the torch from his hands. I won't let you risk yourself for me. Not again. Velari, wait. But she was already moving, ignoring her injured leg as she stepped out of the shelter. The shadow wraiths converged on her position like living darkness, and she met them with controlled bursts of plasma energy that turned the night into a strobing light show. Take that, you photophobic nightmares, she shouted, her injured leg buckling as she fought to stay upright. I've had worse days than this. Aron watched in amazement as she drove off the creatures with a combination of plasma fire and what appeared to be sheer bloody-mindedness. When the last of the shadow wraiths disappeared into the jungle, she limped back to the shelter and immediately reached for his hand again. That, he said, was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever seen. Both, she said, settling beside him with obvious pain. Definitely both. As their hands reconnected, he felt something new flow between them, not just her emotions, but a sense of partnership, of shared purpose. The neural bond was deepening, and surprisingly, he found he didn't mind. So, he said, what's the protocol for this kind of thing? Do I need to meet your parents or just your neural network? She laughed, and the sound was like coming home. My parents are dead, remember? Right. Well, then I guess I'll just have to settle for getting to know you the old-fashioned way. He smiled. Fair warning, I'm told I'm an acquired taste. Good, she said, her skin glowing softly in the shelter's dim light. I prefer things that are worth the effort. Dawn on Thessera, 7 brought 2 pieces of bad news. Velari's leg was swelling despite the bone fusion, and her skin had developed an alarming greenish tinge that definitely wasn't part of her normal color palette. "Well," Aron said, checking his medical scanner for the third time, "this is what we in the medical profession call not good." "Your bedside manner needs work," Velari said, though her voice was strained. "What's the diagnosis, doctor?" "Infection. Your body is rejecting the human medical compounds I used." He frowned at the scanner readings. "It's like trying to fix a quantum computer with a Stone Age hammer. Technically possible, but not recommended." Velari's grip on his hand tightened. "How long do I have? Let's not get dramatic. You're not dying, you're just medically incompatible with my life-saving efforts." He began pulling plants from his kit. "The good news is that I paid attention during xenobiology class. The bad news is that I mostly paid attention to the parts about alien mating rituals." "Of course you did," she said, but she was smiling despite her obvious discomfort. "Hey, it seemed important at the time. You never know when you might need to avoid accidentally proposing to a Centaurian by sneezing in the wrong direction." He held up a bioluminescent flower that pulsed with soft blue light. "But I also remember something about adaptive pharmacology. Local plants often have compounds that work with indigenous physiology. You want to treat me with alien weeds? I prefer to think of them as locally sourced organic pharmaceuticals." He began analyzing the plant's chemical structure with his scanner. "Besides, human medicine has been using plant-based compounds for millennia. We just dress it up in fancy packaging and charge more." Working together, they began cataloging the jungle's medicinal properties. Velari's knowledge of Altairian biochemistry combined with Aron's medical training created an unlikely but effective research team. She would identify plants that resonated with her physiology, while he analyzed their chemical composition and potential therapeutic applications. "This one," she said, pointing to a vine that sparkled with crystalline sap. "It feels compatible. Like it's singing in harmony with my nervous system." "Singing?" Aron raised an eyebrow. "That's either poetic or concerning." "Possibly both. The neural bond," she explained, her skin flickering with soft gold light. "It's getting stronger. I can feel the biochemical resonance of living things around us. And through our connection, I can sense your thoughts, your memories." "All of them?" Aron asked, suddenly self-conscious. "The surface ones. Your dedication to healing, your loneliness, your terrible jokes." She paused. "Your genuine care for others, regardless of species. It's unusual for a human." "Thanks. I think." He extracted the vine's sap and began synthesizing a treatment. "What else can you sense?" "Fear," she said quietly. "You're afraid of losing people. It's why you became a medic, isn't it? You couldn't save someone important to you." Aron's hand stilled. "My sister. Car accident when I was 16. I held her hand in the ambulance, but I couldn't do anything to help her." He resumed his work. "I swore I'd never feel that helpless again. And now you're afraid of losing me," she said, not a question. "Maybe. Is that what this bond thing does? Makes us emotionally codependent?" He tried to keep his tone light, but failed. "Sometimes. But it also shows us truth. The real reason I won't let go of your hand." She squeezed his fingers. "I've been alone for so long, Aron. Since my family died, I've kept everyone at a distance. But you see me as a person, not just an alien to be useful or feared." "Hard to fear someone who makes fun of my jokes," he said, preparing the injection. "This might hurt." "Everything hurts," she said simply. "But for the first time in years, I'm not facing it alone." The synthesized treatment worked better than either of them had hoped. Within hours, the infection began to recede, and Velari's natural blue coloring returned. But their relief was short-lived. The sound of approaching engines cut through the jungle's ambient noise, and they both looked up to see a rescue shuttle breaking through the canopy. The sight should have been cause for celebration, but Velari's grip on his hand became desperate. "They're coming for us," she said, panic creeping into her voice. "That's generally the point of rescue missions," Aron said, though he felt his own anxiety spike through their connection. "You don't understand. Once we're back in civilized space, there will be protocols. Regulations. My government will want to study this bond, your government will want to prevent it." Her skin began to pulse with rapid, frightened light. "They'll separate us." The shuttle touched down in a clearing nearby, and Aron could see the mixed crew of humans and Altairians disembarking. Official rescue, official procedures, official ways of keeping different species in their proper places. "What if I don't want to be separated?" he asked quietly. "What? You heard me. What if I want to keep holding your hand?" He smiled, though his heart was racing. "I mean, I've gotten used to the glow. It's like having a personal mood ring that also happens to be the most interesting person I've ever met." "Aron. I'm serious. This bond, this connection we have, it's not just alien neurology. It's not just stress response. It's something real." He squeezed her hand. "Something worth fighting for." The rescue team was getting closer, their voices carrying through the jungle air. Soon they would be found, treated, debriefed, and processed back into their separate worlds. "What are you suggesting?" Velari asked. "I'm suggesting," Aron said, standing and helping her to her feet, "that the universe has a sense of humor after all. And maybe, just maybe, it's finally decided to be funny in a good way." Hand in hand, they walked toward their rescue and whatever came next. The rescue team found them exactly where they'd expected to, sitting together on a fallen log, hands intertwined, looking like two people who had decided to make the best of a bad situation. What they hadn't expected was the soft, steady glow emanating from Velari's skin or the way she seemed to flinch every time someone suggested they might need to be separated for medical evaluation. "Standard procedure," explained Commander Hayes, a stern human woman with the kind of expression that suggested she'd seen everything the universe had to offer and wasn't impressed. "Separate medical evaluations, debriefing, then transport back to your respective assignments." "About that," Aron said, not loosening his grip on Velari's hand. "I'd like to request a transfer." "Transfer?" Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Son, you just survived a crash landing on an uncharted world. Maybe we should focus on getting you some proper medical attention before you start making career decisions." "I am proper medical attention," Aron said with a grin. "Ask her." He nodded toward Velari. "I fixed her leg, synthesized alien antibiotics, and only made moderately terrible jokes the entire time. That's got to count for something." Dr. Tresh, the Altairian medical officer, was studying his scanner with obvious confusion. "The neural bond readings are unprecedented. The depth of connection typically takes years to develop, yet you've achieved it in less than 48 hours. We're overachievers," Velari said, her skin flickering with nervous humor. "Also, life-threatening situations tend to speed up the getting-to-know-you process." "This is highly irregular," Hayes said, but her tone had shifted from stern to merely concerned. "Cross-species neural bonding isn't just medical curiosity, it's politically sensitive. There are protocols, procedures, committees that need to review." "Commander," Aron interrupted, "with all due respect, your protocols didn't crash land on a jungle moon with a broken leg and carnivorous plants. Sometimes the universe has better ideas than our paperwork." The rescue team exchanged glances. Through their bond, Aron could feel Velari's growing anxiety about what came next. The shuttle's medical bay, with its sterile walls and separate treatment areas, felt like a prison designed to keep them apart. "I have a proposal," Aron said, addressing both Hayes and Dr. Tresh. "The Altairian Medical Exchange Program has been looking for human volunteers to study cross-species treatment protocols. I volunteer." Hayes frowned. "That's a 3-year commitment to an alien world." "I'm aware. I've also just spent 2 days learning more about interspecies medicine than most doctors learn in their entire careers. He squeezed Velari's hand. Besides, I think I've found my specialty. Dr. Tresha's expression was unreadable. The neural bond will make separation difficult. Painful, even. But it should fade given time and distance. What if we don't want it to fade? Velari asked quietly. What if we want to see what happens when two people from different worlds decide to build something together? The rescue team was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Hayes sighed. The paperwork alone is going to be a nightmare. I'll help, Aron offered. I have excellent handwriting and a high tolerance for bureaucratic nonsense. That's not exactly a medical qualification, Hayes said, but she was almost smiling. Are you kidding? Have you seen medical school applications? Bureaucratic nonsense is basically a prerequisite. 3 weeks later, Aron stood in the medical bay of the Altairian research station orbiting Thessera 7, watching Velari adjust to her new role as xenobiology liaison. Her leg had healed perfectly, though she still unconsciously reached for his hand whenever she was concentrating. How are the neural bond studies progressing? She asked, not looking up from her data pad. Fascinating, he said, settling beside her. Turns out that what happened to us isn't just rare, it's revolutionary. The research team thinks we might have stumbled onto a new form of interspecies communication. Stumbled, she repeated, finally looking at him. Is that what we're calling it? Would you prefer, discovered through a series of fortunate accidents involving spaceship crashes and alien first aid? That's better, she said, her skin glowing with soft contentment. More accurate. Through the viewport, they could see Thessera 7 spinning slowly below them, its bioluminescent jungles pulsing with alien life. It looked peaceful from orbit, beautiful even. Hard to believe it had nearly killed them both. Any regrets? Aron asked. Velari considered the question seriously. About the crash? The injuries? The carnivorous plants that tried to eat you? About this, he said, holding up their joined hands. About choosing to build something new instead of going back to the way things were. Never, she said without hesitation. Though I do have one complaint. What's that? Your jokes really are terrible. Hey, my jokes are improving. The research team laughed at my quantum entanglement pun yesterday. That wasn't laughter, Velari said gently. That was polite scientific confusion. Same thing, Aron said, pulling her closer. Besides, you're stuck with me now. The bond won't let you escape my sense of humor. I think I can live with that, she said, her skin glowing brighter as she smiled. After all, we have all the time in the universe to work on your material. Outside their window, Thessera 7 continued its ancient dance around its twin suns, and somewhere in its bioluminescent depths, 2 crashed escape pods were slowly being reclaimed by the jungle. The universe, it seemed, really did have a sense of humor after all, and occasionally, it decided to be funny in the best possible way.